Hey guys, tonight we're traveling somewhere cold. Not chilly, not sweater weather. We're talking eyeball freezing, nose hair-raising. Wait, your eyelashes are stuck together cold. You're standing in the vast Arctic expanse just as the sun dips below the horizon. For good, goes up here in Inuit lands. Winter doesn't politely ask permission. It stays for months. Around you, everything crunches. Your boots on the snow, your breath in the air. A faint lavender hue hangs in the sky, and you realize you can hear everything. ... Or rather, nothing. No cars, no phones, not even birds. Just that pristine, spine-tingling silence. And that's where tonight's story begins. In a palace, not in a war room, but in a frozen silence where people have somehow, for thousands of years, stayed warm. You see that oddly shaped tool in your hand? That's your snow knife. No blade, no steel, just expertly carved bone, maybe walrus tusk or whale rib. Polished, smooth, and sharp by hands that knew survival down to the molecule. You'll be using it a lot, trust me. By the end of tonight, you'll wonder how you ever lived without one. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere warmer than minus 40 degrees Celsius, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where these sleepy stories reach. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You hold your snow knife like a sculptor, not for art, but for shelter. Around you stretches the Canadian Arctic, perhaps 500 years ago. You're on a seasonal migration with your family, trekking across tundra that's more ocean than land beneath all this snow. And tonight, you're stopping. No tents, no cabins, but you have all the tools you need on your back and in your sled. Your snow knife? It's the Arctic equivalent of a Swiss Army knife crossed with a bricklayer's trowel. With it, you begin cutting blocks of snow, powdery snow, but dense wind-packed stuff that holds together like cake slices. Each block is angled just so, stacked in a rising spiral that's more elegant than you'd expect from frozen water. The wind starts to howl, but you're already shaping the dome. Inside it will be still. Inside it will be warm. Warm is relative, of course. You're not going to be sipping cocoa in a t-shirt, but an igloo called a kag, when it's big enough for community events, can be surprisingly snug. With good insulation, aka snow walls, a little body heat, and a steady flame from a seal oil lamp. Temperatures inside can hover around freezing even when it's minus 40 degrees Celsius outside. That's basically a sauna up here. Historians still argue whether early Inuit used igloos for long-term living or just as temporary hunting shelters. What's clear is that they weren't just ice tents. These were feats of architecture, built by feel, by memory, by people who learned how to listen to snow. You pause to adjust your mitten-stitched caribou fur on the outside. A bit of dog fur lining the inside. Soft, thick, reversible too. And someone probably spent hours chewing the sinew thread so it wouldn't snap while sewing. Block by block, your dome curves over you. Then comes the keystone block on top, a crucial final piece that locks the whole structure. It's placed wrong, the dome can collapse. If it's placed right, it can last for weeks. There's a ritual to it. You smooth the walls, cut a crawl tunnel so cold air stays low, maybe add a ventilation hole. And finally, this part's optional. But your ancestors would approve you. Take your snow knife and carve a tiny ledge near the entrance. It's just big enough to rest your mittens or set down a bit of meat to cool. Oh, and let's not forget that quirky little fact. In some regions, Inuit used to add a tiny fishbone cross above the entryway. Not for decoration, but as a charm to ward off bad spirits. It wasn't religious in the way you might think. More like, hey spirits, this igloo's taken. Try next door. Inside your newly built home, the light turns soft. Snow acts like a diffuser, glowing with the moonlight. You run your hand along the smooth inner wall. It's like being inside a glowing sugar dome. Quiet, muffled, sacred. You curl up on the snowbed well. Technically a raised snow platform topped with layered caribou skins, and you start to relax. Outside, the wind rages. Inside, you hear your breath, your heartbeat, maybe the creak of snow settling. That's it. And in that silence, you realize this snow knife in your hand has done more than build a house. It's carved a pocket of life out of the lifeless. a warm breath in a frozen world. And you haven't even boiled the tea yet. You're kneeling now, just outside your freshly carved igloo. Snow beneath you, hard-packed and crunchy like a stale cracker. Not that you're thinking about crackers, you're too focused on carving the entrance. The Arctic wind whistles over your hood, slicing past your cheeks like a sarcastic reminder that comfort is earned up here, not given. You use your snow knife, still warm from your gloved hand, to gently chip out a low tunnel-like entrance, just enough for you to crawl through. It serves two purposes. 1, it keeps the warm air from escaping. And 2, it keeps the truly curious polar bears guessing. A bear won't crawl in after you if it isn't sure it'll fit, usually. Inside the igloo, the air is still, hushed, and strangely tinged with a faint, sweet scent from the snow itself. Not perfumed, just ... clean. Almost nostalgic if you've ever sniffed winter laundry hung to dry. You shape the interior with care. The trick isn't perfection, it's intuition. You know how far you can shave a wall before it collapses. You carve a sleeping platform raised a foot above the main floor, because cold air sinks. Smart, right? It's like ancient climate control. No electric bill required. As you work, you hum nothing special. Just a rhythm to pass the time. It's what your ancestors did too. There's a kind of comfort in repetition. You might even tell yourself you're doing something your great-grandparents once did. Right down to the curve of your wrist as you carve. Historians still argue whether these building skills were passed by demonstration, chant, or structured instruction. Some believe the whole process was embedded in lullabies and play. Imagine learning architecture by singing bedtime songs. Honestly, sounds more fun than a modern building permit. Now the igloo is done, but the work isn't. You gather blocks of snow to seal the entrance and press down on them just so. You pat the sides with your mitts, reinforcing weak spots. You dig a tiny ventilation hole up top with the point of your snow knife, a chimney of sorts. So the oil lamp you'll light later won't snuff out the oxygen. It's almost night, not that it matters. The Arctic night doesn't follow rules. The sun might not rise for weeks, but there's a peace in that too. You're no longer racing the clock, you're flowing with it. Your family joins you. Everyone shuffles into the shelter, brushing snow off coats, cracking quiet jokes in low voices. The youngest crawls in last, giggling as they bump their head on the low entrance. That's tradition too. Inside, the light comes from a single source, a kullik, or seal oil lamp, shaped like a half moon and resting on a flat stone. You light it with a twist of dry moss, and it flickers to life, casting amber shadows on the walls. The snow glows like the inside of a pearl. It's beautiful in a way you hadn't expected. Intimate, muted, soft. This is when you really feel it, the warmth. Not just the lamp, not just body heat, but the psychological shift, the calm. You've built your world from nothing but cold, and now you're surrounded by it, but no longer afraid of it. And yes, let's address the quirky tidbit you've probably been wondering about. Sometimes, people would actually cook inside the igloo. Carefully, of course. Boiling water or tea over the kullik, melting snow for soup, maybe even heating up a bit of seal meat. It's not exactly five-star dining, but there's something profoundly satisfying about sipping something hot while sitting on ice. Of course, you don't want to overdo it. Melt too much, and your walls will start weeping or worse, collapse. That's why many families built multiple igloos, one for sleeping, one for cooking, sometimes a third for storing food or tools. An icy little compound, each dome connected by low tunnels, like a snow-white hobbit village. And the silence inside. It's not the eerie kind, it's meditative. The snow dampens everything's sound, light, even your thoughts. You can hear your breathing slow. Maybe someone starts humming again, or tells a quiet story. No loud voices, no sharp noises, just warmth and whispers. You settle in for the evening, curling onto your sleeping platform layered with furs, thick caribou hide underneath, soft fox pelts near your face, maybe even a bonus layer of dog fur for extra heat. Dogs are more useful than they look. After all, someone near you mutters a sleepy joke about using your snow knife to carve the perfect nose hole in your hood. Because yes, you're still wearing most of your outerwear inside. Getting naked in an igloo? Not recommended. Let's just say frostbite is not a good bedtime story. You drift for a while, eyes open, watching the soft glow on the dome above you. And that S when you notice something, that S easy to miss. The snow slowly changing. As body heat fills the space, the innermost layer of the snow wall begins to melt. Just the tiniest bit then refreezes into ice. Over the hours, it forms a thin, glassy sheen inside the igloo, making it sturdier, brighter, more reflective. It's like the house is sealing itself around you. And you, bundled in your layers, wrapped in your own breath and warmth, realize this isn't just shelter. It's an act of quiet genius. Snow blocks stacked by hand, curved to the sky, infused with care. Built not just to survive, but to rest. The next morning, if you can call it that. Since the sun still refuses to rise, you push aside the snow plug sealing your igloo-esque tunnel entrance and crawl into the pale, frosted daylight. It's not bright, but the snow reflects what little light there is, turning everything a soft silver. The cold snaps at your cheeks like a grouchy cat. You blink a few times, stretch, and take a deep breath that instantly freezes in your nostrils. Time to do something very unmodern. Go looking for wood when there are no trees. Because out here in the Arctic, timber is not part of the landscape. What? Tundra doesn't have forests, it barely has grass in summer. So how do you build anything more elaborate than a snowball? You improvise. You adapt. You look at whale bones. Massive, weathered, worn by salt and sea. Whale bones are the Arctic's version of steel beams. Ribs taller than you arch out of the snowdrifts, jawbones wide enough to crawl through like doorways. They're left behind by drifted carcasses or gathered from previous hunts. And when wood is fantasy, whale bones become architecture. You trudge across the wind-swept flats, sled in tow, eyes scanning the horizon for a ridge of white that is slightly yellower than snow maybe. The curve of a whale vertebra poking through the crust. When you find one, you kneel, dig, and slowly reveal the bone, like an archaeologist uncovering a relic. You strap it to your sled and haul it back, muscles grumbling. These bones aren't just for show. They'll serve as roof beams for semi-permanent homes called Carmack part tent. Part house, part-time capsule of generations. Historians still argue whether the use of whale bones in dwellings began purely out of necessity, or if it also held symbolic meaning, something spiritual about living inside the remains of such a powerful creature. Some believe it was a way to honor the whale's spirit, to keep its strength with the family that harvested it. You get back to camp and set the bone aside for now-today's goal, ice and tea building a mansion, but you remember stories of great hunters building summer homes using whale ribs, sod and skins, creating sturdy insulated hideouts that could last years. These weren't just shelters, they were landmarks. Some Inuit communities still return to the same skeleton-framed homes across generations. Like visiting Grandma's house, if Grandma happened to live in a structure made of whale parts. There's that quirky historical tidbit. Archaeologists once uncovered an old settlement, where the entryway was flanked by 2 entire narwhal tusks. Not for defense, not for function, just style. Because even in sub-zero temperatures, you still want to make a statement. Back in your own igloo, you pull the smaller bones from your gear piles, splintered bits of rib, narrow strips of scapula polished over time. These will become sled runners, tool handles, even supports for cooking racks. You rub your gloved thumb across one, feeling the grain of time. The bone creaks faintly in the cold, like it's remembering ocean songs. There's an elegance to using bone. It's light but strong, rigid yet flexible, and you don't waste a scrap. A whale might provide oil, meat, sinew, tools, and shelter. You could live for months on what it gave if. You honored it and planned wisely. You lift a small jawbone up to the light. This one will be perfect as a support beam for a small cashew. No, it's that raised platform for storing food out of reach of curious wolves. It's a simple design. For upright bones, a flat surface, and maybe a skin covering to keep snow off. It's not glamorous, but in the Arctic, keeping meat dry is more romantic than a candlelit dinner. As you work, someone calls from a nearby igloo. Neighbor is fixing their sled with lashings made from dried walrus hide. You walk over, admiring how their sled curves are held in place by cross pieces of what else? Whale rib. Everything is lashed tight, no nails, just tension and know-how. You crack a joke about how their sled looks like it was designed by a whale with style ambitions. They chuckle and toss a snowball your way. Arctic humor is dry and deadpan, kind of like the environment. Later, as you sit beside the kullik again, its quiet flame casting long shadows. You look up at the roof of your igloo. The soft, rounded ceiling reflects a dance of amber light. And you imagine how in other seasons you'd be under a sod house, the frame held up by whale bones, the walls lined with hides, the roof packed with earth and moss. In summer, snow disappears, and so does your icy architecture. But the bones remain silent, strong, sun-bleached monuments to both survival and tradition. People have found ancient whalebone homes, centuries old, half buried, half preserved by cold, whispering stories in the wind. You touch the snow knife lying beside you and glance at the chunk of vertebra you've set aside. It'll be shaped tomorrow, maybe into a ladle, maybe a tool, be something just for beauty. And as your eyes grow heavy in the warm hush of your bone-framed home of snow, you wonder how many nights like this have come before. How many igloos and sod houses cradled families, stories, songs, snores. The bone may belong to the whale, but the warmth you've made, it's all yours. You wake up to the soft rustle of movement someone's already stirring, probably tending the kullik. The flicker of its light dances on the igloo walls, like a gentle reminder that day and night up here don't follow the rules. Everything is timeless. Dreamlike, still a little sleepy, you sit up, rub your eyes behind your fur-lined hood, and stretch until your joints crack like twigs in the frost. Now comes one of the most delicate tasks of the day: sewing. Yes, that's right. In a place where surviving requires constant motion, tracking, hunting, lifting, sometimes the most critical act is sitting still with a needle and thread. You're sewing clothing that could mean the difference between a warm laugh and a frozen toe, and you're not using just any tools. You're using sinew, bone. Your sewing needle is probably carved from caribou antler, sleek and ivory-colored, honed to a sharp point as fine as a whisper. The thread, that's dried, chewed sinew tendon, often from caribou or seals. Before you sew, someone's gnawed it soft again, so it won't split or fray. Kind of a shared chore slashes knack in a way. You sit by the lamp, legs crossed, working the needle through sealskin, layering it to make a parka. This isn't fashion. This is armor against the wind. Yet it's hard not to admire the craft. Some hoods have fringe made from wolverine not for flair, but because wolverine resists icing up from breath. Details like that come from centuries of trial and error. Historians still argue whether Inuit sewing techniques were adapted from earlier Siberian migrations or developed independently from scratch in different regions. Either way, the result is the same. Garments so expertly made, they outperform many modern winter jackets, and no zippers to break either. You glance down at your snow goggles, a curious little invention. Not high-tech, not plastic. Just two thin pieces of bone or wood carved to fit the face, with narrow horizontal slits across the front. You tie them on with sinew and primitive sunglasses. Because yes, the Arctic can blind you when sunlight finally returns. It reflects off the snow so fiercely it's like trying to walk on a mirror while staring at a flashlight. Your goggles block the worst of the glare, focusing your vision like little slits in a submarine. Quirky detail here. Some early explorers mocked Inuit goggles, till they went blind from snow glare and begged for a pair. Who's laughing now? The parka, your stitching, might be made from caribou. Hide lightweight, breathable, incredibly warm. For damp conditions, you'd go with sealskin, oiled, and waterproof. And if you're really showing off, you might line the inside with something softer, like fox or even bird down. Your fingers, despite the cold, are precise. Every stitch matters. A loose seam means wind can sneak in and turn your cozy parka into a personal freezer. No thanks. So you double-check tie knots, smooth the seam, and there's pride in this too. Somewhere in the igloo, a child giggles, probably playing with a toy carved from driftwood or antler. You smile, remembering the miniature parkas people, so 4 dolls. Exact replicas of the adult ones, stitched just as carefully. Because in this culture, play is practice. And little fingers need to learn the rhythm of sewing early. Next to you, someone finishes a pair of boots comics made from sealskin. The soles are thicker, sometimes stuffed with moss for insulation. And unlike your store-bought shoes, these need to be taken apart, aired, and restitched every so often to prevent wear and mold. Not so different from rotating your tires, but with more blubber involved. Outside the igloo, you hear a muffled crunching, someone walking past in their handmade outer gear, the snow underfoot groaning with each step. Everything here sounds different, softer, more deliberate. Even sewing carries a rhythm. Stitch, pull, not breathe. You pause to rest your eyes and glance at the collection of tools on your lap. A small, all carved from walrus tusk, a thimble made of hide, a tiny bone knife used to trim seams. It's a humble set. But in the Arctic, this is your designer toolbox, your couture kit. Your warmth depends on it. And here's a little-known fact to warm your toes. Some Inuit families pass down certain bone needles from mother to daughter. Like heirlooms treasured not for their appearance, but because they were lucky, never broke, never bent, always true. One needle might survive generations, mending the lives of many through layers of stitched hide. You lean back against the igloo wall, your parka nearly done. It's heavy but perfect. You run your hand down the stitched back, admiring how the fur lies smooth. If it were colder, you'd wear it fur side in for warmth. If it's windy, fur side out to shield you. The versatility is built in. There's an art to dressing for this place. One layer to wick away sweat, one to hold in warmth, one to block wind. All breathable, all repairable, and absolutely no cotton. Cotton kills. It soaks up moisture and freezes. You smile, remembering an old saying. Dress like your grandma, or you'll freeze like your uncle. As the lamp flickers beside you, the igloo fills with quiet pride. Everyone's hands are busy repairing gloves, darning socks, making mittens from dog fur. Yes, doggin, yet there's nothing frantic about it, just movement, purpose, and warmth. Outside, the cold waits. But inside, a parka hangs freshly sewn. Your snow goggles sit ready. And the ancient rhythm of stitch and survival carries on. You can hear it long before you see it, a soft hiss and pop as a kullik, the traditional seal oil lamp, flickers into life once again. The flame dances low and golden, its crescent-shaped basin carved from soapstone, smooth and dark like something forged from the earth's frozen marrow. This is your hearth, not a fireplace with crackling logs. It's not a gas stove or glowing heater. Just a stone lamp fueled by seal blubber, trimmed with Arctic moss for a wick. And yet it gives light, heat, and the power to cook a simple hot meal all, while resting quietly in the center of the igloo like a sleeping cat. You lean over, watching as someone gently scrapes the soot from the edge of the basin using a bone scoop, then refills the hollow with another chunk of fat. The smell isn't unpleasant, rich and earthy, like candle wax that grew up hunting fish. The kullik is one of the most crucial inventions in Arctic life. Historians still debate whether its origins stretch back across the Bering Strait, perhaps adapted from Siberian oil lamps. But here, in the Inuit world, it evolved into something more. It became the glowing heart of the home, symbolic, practical, and spiritual, all at once. And it's not just about warmth. Tonight, you're using it to make tea. You lift a small bone or soapstone pot and nestle it over the flame, balancing it on a few slivers of whalebone like a makeshift trivet. Inside is melted snow and a handful of dried tundra herbs someone collected last summer, maybe Arctic willow or tiny bits of Labrador tea leaf. It's not sweet. It's not spicy, but it's warm and soothing and tastes like the memory of summer under 10 feet of snow. While it heats, you reach for the cooking implements. No stainless steel here. Instead, you've got a spatula carved from narwhal tusk and a ladle shaped from a hollowed piece of shoulder blade. These aren't novelty items. They're just what you use. Simple, effective, beautiful in their own weathered way. Outside, the cold deepens. Inside, you gently slice a strip of frozen char, still shimmering with icy crystals. You place it beside the flame to soften. Maybe warm it just a touch, not cook it, not exactly, but let it thaw into a buttery texture. Raw fish, when eaten this way, is called quack. It's rich, fatty, clean-tasting. Like sashimi that's been to survival school. Beside it, you unwrap a bit of dried meat from yesterday's hunt caribou jerky, tough but satisfying. You might even have a small pouch of fermented walrus, if you're feeling adventurous and your nose can take the hit. Not everyone's cup of tea. Literally, but it's traditional. A child watches you, eyes wide, waiting for the moment you'll hand over a bite-sized piece. You do, with a quiet laugh, and they chew it solemnly like it's sacred. Maybe it is. Food here isn't just nutrition, it's ceremony, a daily thanks to the animals, the land, the snow, and the fire. And speaking of that, here's a quirky little tradition. In some families, the first light of a culloch after a long, dark winter was celebrated like a holiday. Women would chant softly while lighting the flame, an ancient gesture of welcome to the returning sun. The lamp became more than just fire, it was a mirror of light in a place that had none. The flame crackles now as a drop of water hits, its steam rises, and someone jokes that you're making the lamp cry. You wipe it gently with a bit of moss, tending it like a pet. Because yes, the culloch needs care. Its flame must be trimmed regularly with a wick trimmer often, made of bone or antler too. Avoid smoking or flickering too much. There's a balance to it. Ritual. You pour the steaming tea into a cup made from hollowed horn and take a sip. It's not fancy. It's not Insta-worthy. But it warms your throat and nestles into your chest like a quiet fire. You offer some to the others. They take it with murmured thanks. One pulls out a skin pouch and tosses you a bit of frozen fish skin like Arctic chewing gum. You nod in appreciation and the flavors bloom. Salty, rich, surprisingly chewy, and tough. Really tough. Could probably patch a canoe with this stuff. Historians still argue whether communal meals around the culloch had formal roles, or if they simply evolved from habit. What we know is, food was shared, rarely hoarded. Generosity was survival. One good hunter could feed a whole camp. One stingy one could doom it. You lean back against the snow wall, belly full, fingers warm, watching the flame. It dances in the same way it has for centuries, unchanged, unhurried. The world outside is a howling, icy desert. But in here, in this circle of shared heat and quiet laughter, you have everything you need. Even the smell is comforting now. Partly blubber, partly fur, partly tea, but it doesn't stink, just smells. Lived in, like family. As your eyes begin to droop, you pull the fur tighter around your shoulders and watch the flame a little longer. The oil gurgles, the wick glows. The shadows ripple across the ice walls like stories waiting to be told. You whisper something to yourself. Maybe it's a prayer. Maybe it's just a thank you. Either way, the lamp hears you. You're already drifting off when the familiar crack-thud sounds from across the igloo. Someone's adjusting the sleeping platform, probably shifting furs or adding an extra hide to the pile. You blink, then pull the fox pelt blanket closer. The heat it traps is unreal. You'd think sleeping on snow would feel like snoozing on an ice cube tray. But this is borderline luxurious. Inuit sleeping arrangements are brilliantly engineered. Nothing fancy, no memory foam. But the combination of snow, skin, and body heat creates a microclimate that's honestly a little too good. You curl your toes and feel the subtle warmth trapped between the layers of fur, like a pocket of June hiding in January. The bed you're lying on is raised maybe about a foot above the main floor. It's part of the architecture, not furniture. Why? Because cold air sinks. And by sleeping slightly higher, you stay within the warmest strata of the igloo. No thermostat needed, just physics. Historians still argue whether early igloos had designated sleeping areas for different family members, or if everyone just dogpiled for warmth. But oral traditions suggest a bit of both. Specific spots were often assigned, but closeness wasn't just allowed, it was survival. Next to you, someone is curled into a seal fur cocoon, breathing in soft whistles. On your other side, a toddler is bundled so thoroughly in caribou hide that only their eyes peek out, blinking like a sleepy puffin. They shift a little and nudge your arm with their nose. You nudge back. That's the game. The layering is key. Most sleeping platforms start with a base of hard-packed snow, then a thick spread of animal skins. Caribou is king. Its hollow fur traps air and retains warmth better than almost anything else. Over that, you throw more hides: fox, dog, seal, even bird down if you're lucky. Quirky fact: some Inuit use dog fur as their softest layer. Not just because it was warm, but because the dogs were practically family. A good sled dog might run 100 miles with you and still come home to be petted on, occasionally turned into a pillow. Nothing was wasted. Sleeping in an igloo means understanding warmth differently. You're not heating the space. You're heating you, and everything else is helping you hold on to it. It's not about raising the room temperature. It's about not letting your own escape. And when the storm howls outside, the snow walls do their magic. The wind might scream across the tundra, but inside, it's hushed. It's not silent. There's always a soft echo, a creak here. A sigh there, but it feels like sleeping inside a snow cloud, muffled and safe. One of the oldest traditions still whispered among elders involves pre-bedtime rituals. Not prayers necessarily, but checklists. Make sure the lamp's wick is trimmed. Make sure the food cache is sealed. Make sure the dog harnesses are untangled. Make sure above all else that the vent hole in the roof is clear, because without it, well, carbon monoxide from your lovely lamp could sneak in, and your dreams might get a little ... permanent. You stir and glance up. Sure enough, a tiny circle of stars peeks through the vent. Someone's cleared it recently. It's probably before curling up with their own dreams. There's a certain etiquette to sleeping here, too. You don't snore like a bear. You don't roll around like a tumbleweed. You sleep compactly, respectfully, because space is limited, and every movement echoes. Then comes the dream space, something that's hard to explain unless you've lived in this kind of cold. The darkness lasts for months, and when you sleep under snow, time bends. Dreams grow vivid, long, sometimes strange. Your ancestors believed dreams had weight, that what you saw while resting wasn't just fantasy, it could be memory or warning or visit. So when someone murmurs in their sleep beside you, you listen, just in case it's a story passing through. A quirky tidbit from older times: in some regions, families believed the igloo itself had a kind of spirit. Not a ghost or deity, but a personality. You didn't shout inside. You didn't laugh too loudly at night. Because the igloo heard everything, and if it didn't like your behavior, it might sag on you. It's creepy, maybe, but also a charming bit of built-in discipline. You roll over and close your eyes again. The furs rustle slightly as your breath fogs the air just inches from your nose, but it doesn't freeze. The lamp keeps it warm enough that your eyelashes remain unglued this time. And then you feel it, the rhythmic hum of your family's breathing, layered, gentle, deep. It's like sleeping in a living organism, warm with shared life. The snow presses in just right. Cold outside becomes a distant idea, like a memory of another world. If someone wakes in the middle of the night, maybe a child needing comfort, maybe a dog nosing in from the tunnel there, met not with panic, but with calm. A whispered name, a soft gesture, a hand reaching into the dark to find another. Because sleeping in an igloo isn't just about resting, it's about trusting. Trusting the walls, the fur, the fire, the family. Trusting that you've done everything right, and that, for at least a few hours, the cold has no power over you. You let that thought settle into your chest. You shift slightly, sigh, and sink back into the furs. You don't need a clock. The wind and the lamp will tell you when it's time to wake again. But not yet. Not now. Now is for staying warm. Staying still was for dreaming. When you finally stir again, the cold has shifted. It's not in a threatening way, but like a polite nudge, subtle enough to make you wriggle your toes. Stretch your arms and blink yourself back to reality. You listen for the soft sizzle of the kulak. It's still going. Just barely. Time to move. But slowly. You pull yourself upright and pat down the fur blankets, careful not to knock over the cooking rack or the stash of mittens bundled in the corner. In this moment, you notice something subtle. Your breath isn't frosting in the air anymore. It's being absorbed. It means your igloo is working beautifully. First task, check the entrance. You crawl down the snow tunnel and ease the plug aside, revealing a sky painted in pale blue and silver. The horizon is still dusky, this far north. Daylight is less an event and more of a rumor. But the light is growing, reflecting off everything, turning snow into mirrors and shadows into watercolor. Today, your family's preparing for travel, a short relocation. Not far, just enough to track new prey and set up fresh hunting grounds. And that means one thing above all else: sleds. You step outside, and there it is, your igloos, the traditional Inuit sled. No wheels, of course. Just two long runners, usually made from driftwood or bond joined by cross slats, all lashed tightly with sinew. No nails, no glue. It's tension and skill. Historians still argue over how the igloos design evolved so precisely. Some think it came from ancient Siberian sledge traditions. Others argue it was developed independently, shaped by the brutal demands of Arctic terrain. Either way, it's a masterstroke of efficiency And it's not just the build that matters, it's the glide. You kneel beside the sled and rub a piece of frozen fish skin along the runners. Not because you're cleaning it, you're waxing it. Yes, fish skin wax. It smooths the surface, reduces friction, and adds just enough moisture to keep the sled gliding over snow like it's skating on silk. You test the slide by nudging the front. It glides forward with barely a sound. Perfect. Next comes the load. You bundle the furs, the lamp, cooking tools, and bones you've been saving. Everything packed tight with hide cords and strategic layering. The very top your snow knife, tied with care. You wouldn't leave home without it. Now comes the fun part, the dogs. A pack of hardy sled dogs waits nearby, burrowed into shallow snow nests, steam rising from their thick coats. Some are already yawning, tails wagging lazily, while others thump their paws, eager for motion. These dogs aren't pets. They're colleagues, family, guardians, transportation. You call to them softly, using clicks and short commands. They know your voice. They know your rhythm. You tie their harnesses one by one, made from seal hide and softened with hours of chewing and stretching. Each dog gets its place in the line, according to strength, speed, and stubbornness. Quirky fact? Sometimes the lead dog wore a special tuft of fur or feather like a captain's badge. It wasn't for vanity. It helped the musher that's you track them against the white blur of snowstorms. The sled packed and ready, you check the sky again. A faint wind is picking up. Time to move before it sharpens. The others are doing the same, rolling up bedding, kicking snow into their igloo entrances to keep animals out, and calling to their dogs with that deep-in-throat hup-hup sound. One elder stops to carve a quick marking into the snow, just a notch, maybe a symbol, a signal to anyone who might pass. Historians still debate whether these markings functioned as maps or messages. But oral accounts suggest they often conveyed simple things like, "We've moved east," or "No game here." With a final call, the sled team surges forward. You ride standing, knees flexed, snowflakes biting at your cheeks. The dogs move in near silence, paws patting across crusted snow. Behind you, the igloo fades into the endless white jest, a curved shadow disappearing into the horizon. You pass over ridges, across frozen lakes, past the wind-sculpted waves of the tundra. Your sled cuts smooth lines, guided by your subtle shifts in balance. The dogs respond to your murmurs and body language more than to any reins. And through it all, your snow knife rests at your belt just in case. You'll use it again before the day ends. Maybe to dig, maybe to cut, maybe to mark a trail or carve a fish. Its edge isn't steel, but it's been honed sharper than memory. You pass a patch of land where snow has drifted low, exposing a jagged cluster of whale bones frozen into the ground. Someone murmurs that it looks like an ancient house. Maybe it was. Or maybe it still is. The Arctic doesn't always let go of its secrets. The wind stiffens, and you pull your parka hood tighter, the fur rough shielding your face from the sting. Snow begins to rise in little swirls around your boots, and the sky dims, like a curtain being drawn slowly, deliberately. Still, you move forward. The dogs find the rhythm. The sled holds. The snow knife glints faintly in the growing twilight. And somewhere ahead, a new patch of snow waits clean, uncut, ready to be shaped into shelter once again. By the time you reach the new site, the wind has settled into that low, steady hum, the kind that seeps into your bones if you stand still too long. But you don't. The dogs slow to a trot, then stop without command, tongues lolling, tails wagging with the self-satisfaction of a job well done. You pat the lead dog on the flanken, unspoken thank you, and begin unloading the sled. It's time to build again. You know this terrain. Slight elevation, compact snow, natural windbreak from a nearby ridge, good hunting trails in both directions. You stamp a wide circle into the ground with your boots, outlining where the new igloo will rise. The work is physical, methodical, meditative, like sculpting, but colder. Much colder. The snow here has just the right consistency, and wind-packed and fine-grained, not fluffy. You slice clean blocks with your snow knife, each one roughly the size of a microwave, if you even remember what a microwave is. Right now, you're not thinking of technology. You're thinking about arc and weight and balance. You cut, lift, and angle each block into place, spiraling upward. The first rows are easy thicker, broader, like the foundation of a pyramid. But by the third row, your arms ache, and your breath forms tiny ice beads along the edge of your scarf. One person cuts, another places, another smooths the interior wall, melting the surface ever so slightly with the palm of their mitt. The blocks stick together through pressure and contact, no glue needed. It's like building with sugar cubes. Sugar cubes could crush your foot. You take a moment to admire the way each block leans slightly inward, the spiral tightening as it rises. That subtle curve is what makes the dome possible and strong. It's geometry in action, but more than that, it's instinct passed down by hand, not textbook. Historians still argue whether this spiral dome method was discovered by accident or design. Some suggest it mimics the natural formations of windblown snow. Others say it was always taught, an inherited knowledge encoded in the body. Whatever the truth, it works. The weight of the roof distributes evenly down the walls, allowing an igloo to withstand storms that would flatten modern tents in seconds. As the walls rise, you carve a short tunnel entrance not just for access, but as a thermal trap. Cold air pools in the tunnel, keeping the interior warm and sealed. It also helps with privacy. A nice bonus when living in a house made of snow. Here's a quirky bit you probably didn't know. The snow knife ice and tea just for building. It's also used as a measuring tool. The blade's length becomes your ruler, 1 knife length high, 3 across, 2 deep. The symmetry and precision of the igloo depends on the builder's eye. Yes, but also their trust in the familiar feel of that tool in their hand. The final block, the keystone's the hardest. You shape it carefully, angling it just right to wedge into the top. It clicks into place with a satisfying thunk, like the final piece of a puzzle you didn't realize had been missing your whole life. Everyone pauses. There's a brief silence, not ceremonial, but natural. You're all admiring what you've just made. From flat white nothing, you've raised a warm shelter. No blueprints. No screws. No wires. Just hands, snow, and the will to be comfortable in the most uncomfortable place on earth. You crawl inside to begin smoothing the interior. Your gloved hands rub gently across the icy seams, softening rough edges, patching small cracks. The walls begin to glow faintly as the light filters in, no longer a patchwork of blocks, but a seamless, luminous dome. It feels like sitting inside a pearl. And here's something else. You won't finish the igloo completely tonight. The outer walls will freeze harder overnight, strengthening the structure. Tomorrow, you'll polish it. You might even carve shelves or alcoves for tools, stash a pair of boots in the corner, or etch a tiny pattern along the interior curve just for beauty. Yes, beauty. Even here. Outside, the dogs have settled into their snow beds again, curling up tightly, noses tucked under tails. Someone's already lighting the new kullik, coaxing the wick to life. The smell of burning blubber drifts toward you, homie. Familiar. A child is carving a small snow animal nearby, maybe a fox, maybe something more imaginary. Their snow knife is duller, safer, but their hands mimic yours. Cut, shape, pat the sides like you did, like your elders did. Quirky historical aside. In some communities, young children practiced igloo building by making snow models during play. Not snowmen, snow homes. It was part fun, part lesson, because someday the game would become necessity. You learn not by lecture, but by doing. Like inside, you step back from the wall and stretch. Your shoulders ache, your knees complain, but your face, it glows. And not just from the lamplight, the igloo is finished. Outside, the Arctic breathes. The wind whispers along the ridge, brushing snow into soft drifts. But it can't reach you now. You're wrapped in your own creation. You've built this. From the cold for warmth, you sit down on the platform and exhale. The snow doesn't crack. It supports you. And as your breath settles into the rhythm of the lamp's flicker, you realize that nothing here is hurried. Not the building. It's not the warming. Not the life itself. You're not racing the storm. You're living inside it with grace. The next morning, you wake to silence. Not the eerie kind, but a full, thick quiet like the snow has wrapped its arms around the world and told everything to hush. You lie still for a moment, listening to the breath of those around you. The soft whisper of wind pushing snow across the igloo's curved roof.
Ice.
Then comes the crunch. A deliberate step outside. Someone's already up, boots laced, scraping snow off the sled. You hear the familiar brush of fur against fur as parkas are pulled on, mittens clap together. It's hunting day. You stretch the stiffness of yesterday's building efforts, still hugging your shoulders. There's a certain rhythm to days like this. Rise, warm the tea, feed the dogs, prep the gear. But today has something more primal in the era sense of purpose. You'll be going after seal. You head outside, squinting into the flat white of the tundra. There are no roads, no markers, just instinct and memory. The wind patterns on the snow tell you where pressure ridges are. Faint discoloration reveals old breathing holes. Your feet read the terrain like a book. You shoulder your pack. Inside, your snow knife, a short harpoon, a coil of braided sinew rope, and a few strips of dried fish. All essential, none ornamental. You travel light, but you travel smart. Today, you're heading toward a patch of sea ice known for seal holes. These aren't big, gaping circles. They're tiny, just wide enough for a seal's snout, usually invisible unless you know how to spot the raised edges and subtle frost around them. Quirky tip. Some hunters used to press an ear to the snow beside a hole and listen for bubbles, proof that a seal was down there breathing. Other times they'd stick a feather in the hole and wait. If it moved, quietly, rhythmically. Game on. But first, you have to find the holes. You trek across the ice, snowshoes crunching. The light has gone that bluish-gray Arctic tone, as if the world has paused between inhale and exhale. Even the dogs are quiet. This is the kind of landscape that doesn't just suggest silence, it enforces it. Eventually you find one. It's faint, a mere disturbance in the snow. But you kneel beside it, press a gloved palm to the ice, and feel a tiny warmth from beneath. Not heat exactly, but a difference. A pulse. Like the world is breathing from under the frozen sea. You set up your position nearby. You'll be here a while. Seal hunting is not a sport. It's not fast. It's not flashy. It's about patient stillness, so complete that your heartbeat becomes a clock. You sit. You breathe slowly. You tuck your mittens into your sleeves and crouch like a snowdrift. Historians still argue over whether early Inuit hunted alone more often than in pairs. Some say teamwork increased success. Others argue solitary hunting sharpened the connection between hunter and landscape. What's clear is this: success came not from speed, but stillness. You've been crouching for over an hour when it happens. A faint shift in the snow, a breath. Your hands are already on the harpoon, the tip carved from antler, lashed with sinew to a bone shaft. The throwing line coils softly by your foot. You exhale, steady your arm, and the strike is swift, silent. A ripple through the ice. The rope goes taut. You pull, muscles clenching, feet braced. There's resistance, movement, and then a body, sleek and silver, slides onto the ice. It's small, maybe 30 pounds. It's a ringed seal young, but not newborn. Enough to feed the family for days. Provide oil for the lamp, hide for mittens, even bone for future tools. You bow your head for a moment, not showy, not dramatic, just acknowledgement. You whisper a word of thanks into the snow. Later, you'll use your snow knife to begin the careful process of cleaning and cutting. Not here, not now. That comes once you're back at camp, once the dogs have helped haul the catch home, and the lamp is burning again. You lash the seal securely to the sled, its body resting on a bed of pine boughs or spare hides to keep it from freezing solid. The dogs perk up, sensing the success end. You reward them with a strip of dried meat from your pouch. There's pride in this moment. Quiet pride. You didn't just survive, you contributed. Quirky fact. In some Inuit traditions, first-time hunters were given a small piece of the animal's liver to eat raw right. They're on the ICA as a kind of rite of passage. Not for the squeamish, maybe, but rich in vitamins and meaning. You decide to wait until you're back at the igloo. The return journey feels different. You're not just moving, you're carrying something sacred. Not just meat, but momentum. The cycle of life turning another notch forward. Snow squeaks beneath your boots. Your breath forms lazy clouds. The sky overhead is softening again into twilight. Back at camp, you haul the sled into the tunnel, the dogs curling into their nests, content. The others gather, offering nods, silent congratulations. The lamp is stoked, and soon the igloo fills with the scent of oil, snow melt, and anticipation. The seal will be honored, shared, stored. Bits of it will be frozen, others dried, the bones set aside for tools. The hide stretched and softened over days, nothing wasted. Everything woven into the rhythm of daily survival. You sit, hands warm against your cup of tea, eyes half-lidded as the flames flicker. The snow knife rests beside you, still clean, still sharp, ready for whatever comes next. Outside, the wind curls around your dome of light, but inside, the glow grows strong. The next day, as the seal meat hangs in the cold air, firming into the rich, fatty sustenance that will feed your family for days, you take on a very different kind of task. Carving not snow this time, not meat or hide, but bone. You crouch on a fur mat just outside the igloo, sun low behind your back, casting a soft glow on the tools in front of you. Whalebone, driftwood, antler, even scraps of old sled runners all laid out like pieces of a puzzle waiting to find their next shape. Today's project is a new snow scoop. You lost the old one when it cracked near the handle splintered. Under pressure from a stubborn ice drift happens, tools break. But unlike a modern shovel that ends up in a landfill, yours becomes fire kindling or gets reshaped into something else. Nothing here is trash, just ... potential. You run your fingers along a rib bone, probably from a bowhead whale. It's curved, thick, and strong, already halfway to the shape you need. Using a smaller shard of obsidian or a sharpened sliver of tusk, you begin to scrape. Slowly. Carefully, this isn't just about function, it's about balance. The scoop must be light enough to use for hours, but strong enough to move packed snow. You carve slowly, angling the handle just so, making sure the grain of the bone isn't working against you. You don't fight the material, you work with it. Quirky side note, many traditional Inuit tools weren't just functional, they were personal. Owners often decorated them with tiny etchings or notches. Not elaborate patterns, just marks. A memory of the seal it helped butcher. A symbol for the family. Or maybe just a doodle scratched during a long wait for the snow to let up. You start doing that now. Scratching a tiny wave-like swirl into the side of the scoop. Not for luck, not for superstition, just because it feels like the thing to do. Next to you, someone's repairing a broken harpoon shaft. They use sinew soaked in saliva, then dried into a near-welded state. Their fingers move fast, confident. It's the kind of hand skill you can't fake. You learn it over years, by failing, by trying again. You ask if they'll help test the scoop later. They nod. You glance at the younger ones nearby. One is practicing with a toy sling made from bone and hide. Another is carving a miniature sled out of driftwood. You smile, not much different from what you're doing, just smaller stakes. For now, historians still debate the origins of Inuit carving traditions, whether the functional came first, or if artistic expression developed in tandem. But the answer may be simpler than that. When everything you use is made by hand, everything becomes an opportunity to shape beauty into utility. Inside the igloo, the rhythmic thump of hide softening begins. Someone's prepping a fresh seal skin, beating it gently over a smooth stone to loosen the stiffness. It's a muffled sound, soft but constant, like a heartbeat made of fur and ice. The scoop is coming along now. The edges are smooth, the handle balanced, the curve just right. You hold it up, angle it against the sky, and nod. It feels like an extension of your arm. That's how you know it's good. You test it in the snow beside the igloo, slicing off a few blocks, shifting drifts, even clearing the sled path. The scoop works like it was born from the snow itself. You grin. Not bad for a broken rib. Then comes the real reward. Turning to your snow knife. It's time to touch it up. You sit cross-legged, pulling the curved blade from your belt and inspecting its edge. Still sharp, but not perfect. You find a small stone, flat and smooth, and begin to hone the edge, dragging it in long, measured strokes. The sound is soft, like skin brushing ice. It's a quirky tradition. Some knife owners would whisper to their blades during sharpening. Not spells, not magic, just habit. A quiet encouragement. A reminder that tool and hand must trust each other. You don't whisper, but you do hum. Something low and old. A tune passed down, perhaps not even remembered consciously. It helps your rhythm. It fills the space between sound and thought. The blade catches the light clean, glinting, ready again. You tuck both the knife and the scoop into your pack, then walk to the cache where your tools rest when not in use. Each one has its place, slotted neatly into a carved rack or bound in fur to protect the edge. And here's the thing. You don't have many of them, just what's needed. A handful of blades, a scoop, a scraper, a stitching awl. But each one is a masterpiece, not because it's rare or fancy, because it's yours. Made by hand, honed by need. Outside, the sky is dimming again. The light does that up here lingers, stretches, then folds quickly into evening. You stand by the igloo door and look at your tools laid out on a hide, catching the last rays of day. You feel something quiet and grounding in your chest. Everything you need, you carry. Everything you carry, you've shaped. Every tool has a story, and every story begins with the snow knife. And just like that, it's time to go in. Time to warm up, share food, listen to stories, and get ready for whatever tomorrow asks of your hands. You pull the flap closed behind you. The bone tools rest beside the entrance, where the firelight can warm them. Not too much. Just enough to keep the edge alive. It's evening now, and inside the igloo, the light has mellowed into a warm golden halo, wrapping everything in a gentle glow. The kullik hums quietly, its flame dancing low and wide across the curve of its soapstone basin. Someone hums a tune soft, meandering, the kind of melody that's not sung for performance, but simply to pass time. Maybe it's an old lullaby. Maybe it's just habit. You lean against the snow wall, the fur beneath you thick and forgiving. Dinner is over seal meat, a sliver of frozen char, and a mouthful of rendered fat to keep the cold at bay. It's quiet now, not from lack of activity, but from a contentment that fills the air like steam from a pot. This is storytelling time. You don't announce it. There's no formal circle, no assigned speaker. The stories arrive like snowflakes and bidden, drifting from mouth to ear. A child asks a question. Why Dante seals drown when they sleep in the water? That's all it takes. An elder chuckles and begins to speak, weaving science, myth, and memory into a tale so smooth it feels like fur between your fingers. You listen with half-lidded eyes, the world around you softening with each word. This is a place where history isn't written, it's spoken. It's passed not with ink, but with voice. And every night, the snow walls become an echo chamber for the ancient. Tonight's story is about the first snow knife carved not from bone or antler, but from the rib of a great sleeping spirit. According to the tale, a woman trapped in a storm carved her shelter from the creature's frozen bones. When she survived the night, the spirit blessed her knife with the power to cut only what was needed and never more. A quirky twist. The storyteller insists that if you listen carefully while carving, the knife hums, like it remembers that night and sings to the snow in thanks. You chuckle quietly, but you look at your knife resting near the lamp. Just for a second, just in case. Historians still debate whether stories like these served religious, moral, or educational purposes. But you know the truth? They serve all three, and more. They are how knowledge breathes. How children learn to track without asking. How someone learns when a crack in the ice is just a crack or a warning. The story shifts into another, about a hunter who followed polar bear tracks into a fog so thick he thought he was walking in circles. He eventually found his way home by carving tiny notches into his snow knife and letting the cold wind trace them. He listened to the way the air moved across the blade's edge. Whether that's true or not doesn't matter. What matters is you believe it might be. Someone else joins in, adding a memory of a blizzard years ago, the way the snow piled high enough to cover the sled. How they dug themselves out, using nothing but a sharpened walrus tusk. You ask how they sharpened it without metal. They grin, tap their head, and say, "Same way you remember these stories slowly?" The igloo hums with laughter not loud, just warm, shared, like a secret held in mittened hands. You notice a child nodding off mid-listen, their head drooping gently against their mother's shoulder. A tiny pair of fur-lined boots wiggle as they sink into sleep, the snow wall behind them curving like the shell of a protective turtle. And then another story. This time, about a woman who could hear the snow falling. She always knew the best place to build, because she said the snow told her where it wanted to be shaped. Her snow knives never dulled. Her igloos never collapsed. She died in her sleep, the story says peacefully, inside the warmest shelter ever built. Everyone goes quiet for a moment after that one. You sip warm teas, still Bador, still herbaceous, still oddly comforting. The lamp crackles, a drop of melted snow popping in the oil. No one minds. Outside, the wind picks up again, brushing past the entrance tunnel like a hand across fur. You know the igloo will hold. You know the fire will stay lit. You know the snow knife beside you, though humble, holds generations of practice in its curved edge. Quirky detail. In some families, the snow knife was passed down, not inherited, meaning it was never officially given. You just started using it when you were ready. And one day, the old owner simply stopped asking for it back. That's how you knew you'd earned it. You think about your own knife? It's not fancy. No carvings, no charms. But it fits your hand like a glove. You remember shaping your first block with it, hands trembling, blade wobbling. Remember how proud you were when the first wall didn't fall? The stories begin to taper off now, like the embers of a fire settling into coals. Voices drop lower. Someone begins humming again, the tune even slower this time. A dog outside yelps softly in its sleep-chasing dream caribou, no doubt. Inside, you feel your eyelids growing heavy. The snow glows faintly from the lamp's golden curve, casting long shadows in smooth light. You stretch out, tug the furs higher over your shoulders, and nestle into the warm imprint of your own body. The stories have stitched themselves into your chest, now woven into the rhythm of your breath. You'll carry them tomorrow, and the next day, and maybe someday you'll tell them to someone else. But for now, you sleep. You wake slowly, the way you do when you VA slept deeply, and the body doesn't quite remember where it ends and where the blankets begin. The fur still holds the warmth of your sleep, and outside the igloo the wind has died down, replaced by the soft hiss of snowflakes brushing the air. It's morning, or at least, what passes for morning in the Arctic. Where light and time have a looser agreement than most places, today is a special day, not because of a hunt, not because of danger, but because today you'll move into the quiet rhythm of tool making. Not the rushed kind. This isn't survival. This is about patience, intention, the slower art of preparing for the days ahead. That begins with tendon. Yes, tendon. You step outside and pull a bundle of dried seal tendons from a cache. It's preserved near the tunnel entrance. They are light, fibrous, and stiff. These are going to become sinew thread, one of the most prized, durable, and versatile materials in your toolkit. You sit cross-legged in the snow, the fur from your parka splayed around you like a blanket of moss. By one, you separate the strands, pulling each tendon into fibers so fine they catch the wind. Then you chew them. Not for flavor, don't even ask, but to soften them. Moisture and warmth break the strands down just enough to twist them into thread. It's a quirky tip. In some households, this was a communal task. Everyone helped. Even the kids, who loved the excuse to chew something weird. But there were strict rules: no spitting it out, no wasting, and definitely no using it as a fake mustache. It's not more than once, anyway. Lay the threads flat on a hide to dry, gently smoothing them until they gleam faintly like spun silver. Tomorrow they'll be perfect for stitching. Boots, mittens, perhaps even a new harpoon thong. There's a quiet pride in this process. No noise, no audience, just you and the feel of the fibers slipping through your fingers. Back inside, you turn your attention to your boots. They've served you well, mukleks stitched from caribou hide, soles toughened with sealskin, but the stitching's starting to fray. Time for a little maintenance. You take out your curved bone needle, delicate, sharpened to a fine point. It's astonishingly smooth, polished from use. Historians still marvel at how early Arctic communities developed sewing kits so refined they rival anything modern machines can do. And you just thread the sinew like you've done 100 times before and begin to stitch. Your hands move steadily, following the old lines, reinforcing the stress points. It's not flashy work, but it's meaningful. Every stitch means one more dry footstep, one more mile across frozen land without a frozen toe. And while you work, the igloo buzzes gently around you. Someone is boiling snow in a stone pot, steam rising in lazy tendrils. Another person is oiling a dog harness, stretching it between two sled runners. Even the dogs are quiet today, curled up like commas beside the tunnel. You glance at the pile of spare parts in the corner. A broken harpoon head, a bent sled runner, the remains of a cracked ulu blade. Nothing will be thrown out. Every item is a maybe that would becomes a fishing float. Maybe that shard of bone becomes a handle. Everything has potential. You remember a story told not long ago about an elder who refused to throw away even a sliver of bone. They once made a fishing hook from a broken soup spoon and caught the largest Arctic char the village had seen in a decade. Quirky fact. That hook was eventually carved into a necklace and passed down like a trophy. A wearable reminder that you never know what small thing might save you. As the boots are mended, you turn to one final task. Reshaping the handle of your snow knife. It's not broken, not even worn. But the grip doesn't sit quite right anymore. Maybe your hands have changed. Maybe your movements have grown more efficient, and your tool needs to evolve with you. So you unwrap the sinew lashing, remove the old grip made from driftwood, and begin carving a new one slightly thinner, with a groove for your thumb. Historians still argue whether such refinements were practical or aesthetic. You don't argue, you just carve. The blade must feel like a handshake, firm, familiar, and confident. Outside, snow begins to fall in earnest. Thick, slow flakes, the kind that don't rush, but simply arrive. You step out for a moment and tilt your face upward. The snow lands soft against your cheeks, melting just enough to leave a kiss of chill. And just then, you spot them. The faint prints of a fox. Tiny, neat dots in a zigzag across the ice. Not a threat, not prey, just a neighbor passing through. You smile. The land is never empty. It just doesn't always announce itself. You go back inside, finish tying off the thread, and hang your mended boots by the entry to dry. The igloo is warm again, not blazing just enough. The tools lie in neat rows, the sinew thread drying, the dogs sighing softly in their sleep. And you sit quietly for a while, snow knife in hand, handle newly carved. You don't say anything. You don't need to. Everything is ready now. Not because the weather demanded it, but because you chose the moment.
Ow.
The gear is sharpened. The stories are fresh. The hands are steady. And in the hush of the snow-filled day, the slow rhythm of preparation feels like its own kind of journey. By midday, the light has faded into that familiar Arctic half-glow. Neither full day nor full night. But something in between. You've grown used to it. In fact, you might even prefer it. The way shadows stretch long and soft, the snow glinting like sugar under silk, everything is gentler under this light, including time itself. Today, you decide to venture to the sea edge. The pressure ridges there have shifted overnight, and with them, the scent of opportunity has arrived quite literally. You catch it faintly as you pack up your sled. Salt brine, the unmistakable whisper of open water beneath a crust of ice. But you're not going alone. One of the elders joins you, wrapped in layers of caribou hide so thick they barely resemble a human at all, more like a walking hut with opinions. They brought along a bundle of tools, including a very old snow knife, blade worn nearly translucent from decades of sharpening. You glance at your own by reflex. It's younger, yes, but it's gaining stories. The two of you move out across the ice, dogs pulling your gear with practiced grace. The snow here is coarser windblown, rippled, as if the land has been brushed by fingers too large to see. You pass jagged breaks in the crust, where blue ice juts like shark fins from the surface. The dogs navigate carefully, instincts sharper than sight. As you walk, the elder speaks not loudly, not continuously, but in a kind of narrative murmur. They point with their chin toward distant black dots. Pressure ridges where seals might bask, or worse, thin ice. They tell you about a time long ago when someone ignored a warning like that and went through the ice. It wasn't the cold that nearly took them, but the current beneath, the pull so strong it spun their body sideways. Only the snow knife, lodged between their boot and the edge of the hole, kept them from vanishing. Historians still argue whether Inuit oral traditions count as history in the Western sense. But to you, these aren't stories. They're coordinates. Warnings. Maps drawn in memory. You arrive at the pressure ridge. Jagged ice leans in every direction. Sculptural, chaotic, as though frozen mid-tumble. The elder crouches and taps a smooth section with their knife, testing its depth. You follow suit, using your own knife to tap, to shave, to slice small chunks and sniff the air rising from the cracks. There, the faintest puff of warm breath from beneath. This isn't a hunting trip, not today, but a mapping one. You begin marking the area. Small notches carved into snow blocks, line drawn in boot prints. You leave behind a strip of fur tied to a stick-your-own quiet message to future travelers. Someone has passed this way. It might be worth returning. The quirky part. Some explorers in the 19th century were baffled when they found these markers, assuming they were random or even decorative. One journal mentions snow glyphs left by ice spirits. You and the elder have a good laugh about that one. You eat dried meat and frozen berries in silence, perched on a drift shaped like a bench. The wind dies down, and for a moment, the land feels suspended, like you're sitting at the edge of the world. Then the elder pulls something from their pack, an old carving palm-sized, made from walrus ivory. It's a figure with a snow knife in one hand and a seal at its feet. The edges are worn smooth from years of being handled, but the detail remains tiny etchings for fur, bone, and blade. It was mine when I was your age, they say, turning it over in their mittened hands. It belonged to my aunt before that. She said if you carried it while traveling, you'd never be lost. Not because it shows you the way, just because it reminds you to look. They hand it to you without ceremony.
You hesitate.
Fingers hovering. Then you take it. The figure is heavier than it looks. Cold at first, then warming slowly in your palm. You tuck it carefully into your coat near your chest. There's no speech. There's no vow. Just that subtle nod between generations. The kind that says, I see your hands, and I trust them. You head back at dusk. The dogs fall into rhythm again. The sled glides over the packed trail you carved hours ago. The elder hums a tune under their breath, a melody with no lyrics, probably older than both of you combined. You reach the camp just as the stars blink into view. Inside the igloo, you place the ivory figure next to your snow knife on a patch of hide. They sit together now, silent and sure. One is for cutting. The other is for remembering. The lamp is lit, the tea is warm. And you realize that you didn't just mark the sea edge today. You marked a memory, one that will return when you need it, like a trail in the snow. By now, your snow knife feels like an extension of your hand's smooth and grip, predictable in motion, as if it grew there rather than being shaped by bone and sinew. It has cut shelter from storms, shaped snow blocks like puzzle pieces, and skimmed the icy crust from seal hides. But today, its role shifts again. Today, you prepare for travel. You've been at this camp for weeks. Long enough to know where the sun kisses the ridge at noon? Long enough to leave shallow grooves in the snow where your footsteps repeat each day? But the weather is changing subtly, steadily, and with it comes the instinct to move, farther inland, or maybe toward the floe edge, where spring breaks the sea's frozen armor. So you begin the disassembly. Igloos are not permanent structures. They're sanctuaries. Temporary acts of defiance against the cold. When it's time to go, you don't mourn them, you honor them. Cut the blocks again, this time with different intent, slicing through the old seams your hands once smoothed. The snow knife bites cleanly, revealing the slightly refrozen layers beneath. Some blocks are salvageable. They'll be reshaped, repacked, reused at the next stop. Others crumble into powder, sinking back into the tundra. You let them go. The snow will become someone else's home soon enough. The platform is the last to go. It's always colder beneath, where the snow never warmed from body heat or lamp flame. You chip at it with your knife. Not quickly, not forcefully, just enough to loosen the compacted slabs. They slide out with a sigh, as if relieved to rest. Historians still debate whether dismantling an igloo was done in ritual or just necessity. Some oral accounts suggest families whispered thanks to their shelters. Others claim that children were taught to pat the last block like a farewell hug. Either way, there's reverence in the act, Evan. If no words are spoken, you pack carefully. Tools first. Snow knife, harpoon head, scoops and needles wrapped in hide, and then supplies meat, oil, sinew, dry moss for future flames. The dogs are harnessed last, their tails wagging as if they already know the trail ahead. The sled is a marvel in itself. Long curved runners made from driftwood, lashed tight with seal hide and reinforced with bone. It creaks in the cold, but moves like it remembers every path you've ever taken. You secure the load with thick lines, tug at the bindings to check their tension. Everything is snug. Everything is ready. Quirky detail. Some sled drivers tucked small charms beneath their cargo slivers of carved ivory. A fish tooth, or even a fragment of an old snow knife. Not for luck necessarily, but for continuity. A tiny bridge between journeys. You say nothing aloud as you take one final glance at the site. The flattened imprint of the igloo is all that remains, an echo pressed into the snow, like a memory stamped onto fabric, and then you move. The sled pulls forward. The dogs fall into rhythm. Your boots crunch a steady beat behind them. It's quiet at first, just the swish of snow beneath the runners, the occasional huff of a dog exhaling mist into the air. But slowly, as the camp fades behind you, you begin to hear the land again. The wind sweeping across the ridges. The tiny clicks of frost forming on your fur hood. The soft squeal of leather stretching over bone. The landscape changes subtly. Hills rise gently in the distance. The snow grows more granular, glittering under a pale sun. You spot distant trails, faint depressions from caribou or foxes. Your eyes read them without thought. And then ahead, a ripple in the horizon. A ridge of older snow blocks, half melted, half buried. You recognize it. An old campsite, not yours, but familiar. You slow the sled, approach carefully, and stop. There are remnants here. A collapsed snow wall, a few carved markers, and, astonishingly, an abandoned snow knife. It's wedged into the ground, blade first, handle tilted as if someone left it mid-task and forgot. You brush snow from it with your mitten, revealing the curve of antler and sinew binding. It's weather-worn, dulled by exposure, but unmistakably crafted by skilled hands. You don't take it. That wouldn't be right. Instead, you carve a new snow block and set it beside the knife, a small sign of respect, a gesture that says, I see your work, I see your story. Quirky practice. Some travelers would leave their dullest knife behind at camp for others to find an unspoken exchange. A gift of effort. If you could sharpen it, it was yours. If not, you passed it on. You press onward. The sun begins to dip, throwing pinks and soft violets across the sky. The air smells cleaner, here drier, sharper. You can feel the shift underfoot, the promise of firmer snow and clearer skies. You'll build again soon. A new igloo, a new platform, a new nest in the white expanse. And once again, your snow knife will become your chisel, your compass, your companion. It doesn't complain. It doesn't falter. It just waits. As night approaches, you stop by a ridge and begin to unpack. The dogs curl down into hollows, tails over noses. The snow is just right. Here dense, forgiving, full of promise. You lift your knife, and the cycle begins again. You build by instinct now. The moment your snow knife touches the drift, your hands remember every angle, every stroke. You don't need to think. You simply move. Cut, lift, stack. The snow is cooperative tonight, innocent enough to hold its shape, soft enough not to resist. The blocks come out in clean, curved slices, like scooping layers from a frozen cake. One after the other, you place them into a spiral, tilting each slightly inward. The igloo starts to grow around you like a flower made of silence. The dogs rest nearby, tails twitching as they dream. Your breath puffs in clouds, catching in the firelight as someone prepares the kulak. The scent of seal oil and melting snow mingles in the air. In this moment, everything is rhythm. Everything is return. You smooth each joint with the back of your mittens, then fill the cracks with fine powdery snow. It bonds like mortar when it freezes, a trick so effective, it's baffled even modern architects. Historians still argue over the precise engineering behind Inuit igloos, particularly how their spiral dome evenly distributes weight. But you don't need the math. You have the feel. As the final keystone block slides into place above your head, sealing the dome, there's a tiny moment of hush, a pause in the air. You feel it every time, like the shelter inhales once before it becomes real. Then you crawl out through the entrance tunnel, brush snow from your parka, and stretch your back. You're sore but not exhausted. Satisfied. The igloo gleams under the moon, round and sure and ready to cradle warmth again. Inside, the lamp is already lit. The new walls glow with amber flicker, curving overhead like the belly of some vast sleeping creature. The furs are unrolled, the water is warming, and the steam carries a memory of comfort into every corner. You take a moment to examine your snow knife. Its blade is duller now, edges frayed from ice and time. But its handle shines faintly, rubbed smooth by use and sweat. It has earned its rest tonight. It's a quirky tradition. When a snow knife was retired, truly retired, it wasn't discarded. It was buried. It's usually in a snowbank, sometimes in the earth if the ground was soft enough. A quiet return to the land it once helped shape. Some families even left a carved bone near the burial site, just in case the tool ever needed to find its way back. You're not ready for that yet, but soon, perhaps. You think about carving another, one of your own design? Something lighter, slightly longer handle? Maybe a small notch on the back for guiding block angles? You can feel the idea forming, like snow before a storm. Later that night, you gather around the lamp with the others. Tonight's story is yours. You tell them about the old snow knife you found at the ridge, how it stood there like a forgotten flag, marking someone else's battle with wind and ice. You describe the handle, the way it leaned, the snow block you left beside it. They listen quietly. Then someone laughs. Maybe it was mine, they say. You all know it wasn't, but the joke lands, and the warmth in the igloo expands. Someone else adds a story about their grandmother who carved snow knives with one hand while the other held a baby. Another person remembers a knife made from narwhal tusk, gifted to a friend who never came back from the floe edge. It's a night of stories. Again. And then the youngest voice pipes up, a child with wide eyes and cold feet tucked into oversized mittens. How do you know when a snow knife is good? You pause. It's a real question. You answer slowly, when it makes your work easier. When it doesn't fight the snow, when it feels like it wants the same things you do. They nod, like that makes perfect sense. And maybe it does. The wind outside is picked up again. It's not fierce just enough to make the igloo sigh. You can hear the snowflakes brushing the walls, feel the dome flex slightly, breathing with you. You lie back, your snow knife resting beside your sleeping mat. You've placed it there for years now. Some do it for convenience, others for comfort. For you, it's both. It's more than a tool. It's been your key, your shield, your pencil, your plow. It's helped build homes, prepare meals, shape stories. It's been in your hand more than any human's, and still it waits. Outside. The night deepens, the dogs settle, the fire burns low. Inside, the last murmurs fade to quiet. The snow blocks overhead glow faintly, their edges softening like dreams. You close your eyes, fingers resting lightly against the handle of your snow knife. It is cool, familiar, and sure. And sleep comes, as it always does, gently, completely, like snow falling on a silent world. And now, as you lie there in that softly glowing shelter walls, gently curving around you like a cradle carved from time, your breath begins to match the rhythm of the snow outside. Slow, even quiet. You can still feel the knife beside you, symbol of all the quiet power your hands have held. It's not just a tool anymore. It's memory. Legacy. Proof that even the coldest world can be shaped by warmth and will. Above you, the snow glows from the fading ember of the lamp. Shadows drift like smoke across the curves. There's no wind inside, no harsh light, just you, wrapped in fur and silence, listening to the hush of a sleeping land. The dogs outside murmur in their dreams, their paws twitching. The fire lets out one last pop before it settles into its final ember. The scent of oil and hide lingers faintly in the air, grounding you, steadying you. You've journeyed far tonight, built homes, shaped stories, watched the snow fall and melt and fall again. And through it all, the snow knife remained at your side, patient, unwavering. So rest now. Let the quiet cover you like the furs on your chest. Let the hum of the igloo cradle your breath. Let the cold remain outside where it belongs. You are safe. You are home. You are warm. And the snow endlessly falling will wait for you.